Scouts melees are odd. On the whole, they function as intended, but the stigma behind Scout melees is a harsh one. I often see people call them bad or useless in combat and see them only as utility weapons, which is frankly not true, to be honest. I've always had the opinion that Scouts melee weapons are a lot better than people give them credit for, but there are some pretty big stinkers here. So let's talk about it. Let's rank every single Scout melee. Because why not? Oh, dude. Do I really have to talk about the Sandman? I really don't want to. The Sandman just makes me sad. The Sandman is a horrific fall from grace on the level of a Greek tragedy. Trade up for a name tag and call this thing Elon Musk because their tales are practically one and the same. Minus the races. You guys remember before Jungle Inferno this thing was huge and everywhere? My god, it was unstoppable. What once terrorized TF2 with its awful stun mechanics is now reduced to a sad slowdown tool that demands 15 of your precious max HP. It's insane. Now, sure, such an HP decrease doesn't really bring you down too many thresholds, but still, it's a big price for what's essentially just a decrease in movement speed for your enemies, if you can even hit the ball. There is one upside of this weapon. It looks pretty damn good. I will give it that. I like the wood finish. I like the texturing. I like the look of the weapon. It's a very fancy weapon. Awful to use? Beautiful. Do you hate soldiers and demos? Yeah? Well, good luck using this thing without getting nuked by either of them. Now that medkit on kill seems really damn nice, and is pretty damn helpful. However, that explosive damage vulnerability really hurts. That's instant death to any pipe and almost any rocket. Soldiers and demos become one-shotting nightmare demons, able to send you back to spawn by just looking at you. And just to remind you, these two are some of the most mained classes in the entire game. You will run into them constantly. Now, sure, a medkit sounds great on paper, but the Mad Milk and the Pretty Boy's pocket pistol are right there. It's just not a fair trade-off at all. Doesn't help that it's a very ugly weapon to look at and use. It's garish, awful. Take it away. The Sun on a Stick gets a lot of shit for being kind of mediocre, but it's not that bad. It's just kind of pointless. Its fire resistance is negligible, and its crit on hit on flaming enemies is gimmicky, and its damage penalty is fine, I guess. This is a weapon that has become infamous for being bad, but I can't really determine why. It's just niche. It's not like you're actively being punished for using it. It's just a weapon that exists. If you have a friend that's going pyro, it can work pretty well, but if you don't, it's just a weird medieval cool looking slot filler, I guess. What a weird, strange weapon with such a weird, odd past and legacy. What an odd melee, dude. The Fate of War is competent, but there are other tools in Scout's arsenal that can do its job. Marking enemies for death is a pretty cool mechanic, but if you want crits, get a critical or a backscatter. They fill the job just better. They're also just more consistent. The Fate of War needs you to pull it out, hit a guy, then swap back to another weapon and use the crits to its full extent. And sure, the weapon itself may do crits on mini-critted enemies, but the damage is so low that you might as well just use an actual weapon instead of the fan. It's an odd weapon, because really, you're gonna want to have to use this with a stealthy playstyle, but getting hit kind of gives you away, and by the time that you've marked the enemy, you're probably already either getting shot at or just dead. Another competent but odd weapon that does what it does, but just kind of melee. It's another weapon that just kind of exists, though it is good in man versus machine. The Atomizer gets a lot of meat riders, but despite my personal dislike of it, it's a pretty damn good weapon. Already existing high mobility be damned, that third jump is pretty useful. I will say that the Winger feels like a better mobility tool due to its reliability, but, you know, third jump's a third jump. I will say that I feel like the damage stats are kind of a mess, and needing the bat deployed fully to activate the third jump is kind of a pain in the ass. And it's also slower to deploy too, so good luck having this be a reliable melee backup. But hey, third jump. You can get into cool crevices, get onto high up areas, you can get up to ledges that you couldn't before. It's versatile, simple, and not as complicated as something like the Winger or the Force of Nature. Or the Soda Popper, but the Soda Popper needs you to actually do damage before jumping. The downsides may be weird, but I'll say that third jump is pretty damn useful. Hey, hey, bleed damage is always a fun one. Now, sure, the melee hits themselves do basically nothing, but that ball can do a lot of bleeding, and it bleeds pretty well. In fact, pairing this with the flying guillotine can result in stacking bleed, which means more damage. Great for pestering, great for softening, can just kill some enemies right out the gate. It's wonderful. And when you pair it with a scattergun, oh man, that shit gets wild. Always a solid pick. You can never go wrong. This is a weapon that gets so much shit for no reason. Everybody thinks that this is inferior in every other way to any other weapon. I heavily disagree. I think the stock bat is a great, solid option. Think about it this way. Do you like the bat itself? Maybe not. But what about the fish? What about the sign, the panda, the bat saber, the machete, crossing guard, or hardy laurel if you use the last ones? What about the other dozen stock reskins that are out there? Like the ham. We all love the ham, right? It's a fucking cult for it. You all love the ham. None of them would exist without the stock bat. I'm exaggerating here to make a point, but you understand. The stock bat itself may not be the most useful thing ever, but I'll be damned if it isn't a very solid backup weapon. And that's what Scout needs. Solid options when engaging in combat. Sometimes you're not going to have any ammo. Sometimes you're going to be in a corner. Sometimes you're not going to be hitting your shots. And what do you need? You need a solid backup melee weapon. A lot of other scout weapons aren't that. This thing is. Whether it's just default, renamed, strange, some other variant of the regular stock bat, or just a reskin, it will always be there to help you, and it will always stand tall among Scout's pile of beating objects. Banger weapon. Always welcome. Holy shit, it's a stock bat but better. I have been bested. The idea is simple. You hit enemies to make them bleed, you hit air to make yourself bleed. It may sound kind of mediocre, but trust me, it's incredible. If you can hit your shots, this is a straight upgrade to the stock bat. Bleeding damage isn't the most high damaging thing ever, but I'll be damned if extra damage doesn't help out a lot. It can make enemies screw up, it can make them panic, it can give you the edge you need to win the melee fight. If you've ever been in a melee fight where the other guy had like 3 HP when you died, this thing will take away that 3 HP no problem. And missing your hits isn't even that bad because you bleeding can be a massive help for your medics. Uber builds fastest when healing targets that are currently taking damage. Since this weapon lets you deal damage to yourself at any given time, it can let you build up a medic's Uber lightning fast. That Uber build can make or break a round, and if you are able to pull off that strat, it's going to be you taking the credit. And that's not where the positives end, because not only does this thing look great and pair with plenty of outfits, it also lets you do a third jump. If you swing in midair, you're going to go up a little bit because of the damage, and that means you can do the third jump at the cost of some air health, but it's worth it because it actually works. It actually works really well. Absolutely wonderful weapon. You cannot go wrong using it. Amazing. Wonderful. 10 out of 10. Fucking have my children.